If you would like to support me in making these videos, please check out the link to my Patreon campaign down below. If you support me on Patreon, you will also automatically be entered to one of my monthly giveaways. After finishing the Corvette off, I was kinda in the mood for some more American muscle, and this time I decided to do the recent release of the Revell Foose pickup truck. So let's get a quick look at the box and the contents first, and then go into a bit more detail. So as you can see, pretty much all the sprues except for two are molded in white plastic, which makes it a lot easier, especially on the body, to paint it in pretty much any color you wish. Now with that all said and done, let's move on to a bit more detailed shots of all these sprues. The kit does not come with a lot of parts, but all the parts that are there are actually really nicely detailed. For the price, you get a super nice and easy kit to build with a lot of details in it already, so it doesn't really take a lot of extras or any extras at all to make this into a really nice looking kit. To show you an example of the details they went into, even the disc brakes on both the front and back side are detailed. They are drilled and slotted, and that is on both sides, which normally only is on the visible side with most other kits. All the other details are really nice and sharp, even the radiator and the fans on the radiator are nicely detailed, and with a bit of paint they would look like the exact thing. A lot of parts like the roof, the core support, and even the firewall are separate pieces, which makes it a lot easier for painting and also during assembly, as you don't have to move around a lot of these parts to fit other parts together. And it also makes it a lot easier if you want to paint them in a different color than the rest of the body. Since this is the Foose kit and not a stock F-100 kit, it does have a lot of custom touches here and there. As you can see on the engine side, there are a lot of custom touches, and also on the interior. It doesn't have manually winding up windows, but electric switches for that, and it even has some nice aftermarket speakers, which I think doesn't really look that well in this interior, as it mostly looks stock and classic, and these look a bit too new for this kind of style. But that's all up to your preference, and it is mostly hidden in the footwell anyway, so not that big of a deal. The rest of the interior, like the bench seat, is really nicely detailed. It has some really nice and deep lines, which makes it a lot easier to paint it in a couple of different colors. And the floor pan is detailed on the underside and also on the carpet side. The chassis on an actual F-100 is not super detailed or busy with a lot of components all over the place. Neither is this one, of course. It is really easily assembled. It does not have a lot of separate parts, and with a bit of paint, some of those molded in parts can just easily be touched up and made look a lot more realistic. The original F-100 this kit is based on from Foose does not have the same size tires front and rear, and it also doesn't have the same diameter, so neither does the kit. The front tires and wheels are a bit narrower and also an inch or two smaller than the rear ones. Moving on from those tires to the actual wheels I was talking about, the chrome on them is really nice. It really nicely wraps around all the parts and pieces that are visible from the wheel, and it's also nice and even. Now the downside to the chrome on all the other parts is that the mounting tabs from the sprue to the part itself is in a pretty visible place. Now I decided not to use the kit chrome, but you will see that in the build itself. It's just good to know that the location of those is really bad. The mounting system for these wheels is really easily done with just a metal pin that you need to push into the wheel. For the clear parts on the rear, they decided to pre-tint the plastic in red, which makes it a lot easier for the builder as you don't have to paint them separately. All the other clear parts are just clear plastic. Really nice and crisp, no imperfections in it whatsoever as far as I could see, and a lot of nice details, especially in those headlights. The truck bed is a nicely detailed part. You can see the actual wood slats in there, and with the supplied decal that I will be showing you later, you can make it into a convincing looking piece. Now, a couple of friends of mine and I have already built this kit. They all decided to add the wood, and I decided to not add the wood as I ran out of wood when I did the underside, so I had to use the decal, which isn't really that bad either. It is a nicely printed decal with a realistic looking wood pattern on it. Now, as you can see, this rear piece is also detailed, but I wanted to add the wood there first as that was not accessible after assembling it all, and the truck bed was, so I could just add that later on if I wanted to. Moving on to the body itself, it is a nicely molded piece, a couple of really fat mold lines, but also nice and deep panel lines. They don't really need that much adjustment other than around the window frame on the front and rear, as that's not really a panel line, just a bit of a bump to the window frame itself. The same goes for the rear, but that's not really a bump, just a dent, and with a bit of scribing, you carefully could just scribe them out nicely, or you could just leave them and cover them in bare metal foil afterwards to make them look like the actual thing. So as I had previously mentioned, there are a couple of really nasty mold lines on the front. They are really pretty big. It depends on the kit. With the friends I built it, two of them had no problem, and me and another one of those friends did have a pretty big mold line, but with a bit of sanding and filing, it should just be easily leveled with the rest of that fender. The rest of the truck bed is molded in one piece without the bed itself. I don't actually know what this piece is called, but you probably do. The door thingy on the rear doesn't open. Really don't know what that's called either. But the over fenders, or the fenders themselves, are also molded onto that piece, and they just slip onto the previous piece I had shown with the wood bed. And with that all said and done, moving on to the final thing that was in the box, and that was the decal sheet. It has a nice picture drawn by Foose of the actual design of the car, or the truck, and as mentioned, that truck bed liner from the wood paneling and those metal slats, it looks actually quite a lot like wood. It's not 100% correct, of course, so in case you don't want to add the decal, you could just add actual wood to it. All those other gray, red, and black things are just detail of the interior, and there is a bunch of logos for on the brakes, some on the interior, and a couple on the body as well.